Sorry to cut you off, Manager McCollum. We just went live on Facebook Live. We welcome everybody who's watching today for the June 23rd, 2020 meeting of Henderson County Fiscal Court. We're glad you're with us. And as always, we will begin with an invocation, and Magistrate Butch Putman has been so kind as to offer our prayer today. So, Butch, I'll leave it to you.
All right. Let us pray. Oh, Heavenly Father, we thank you for this glorious day. We thank you for the many blessings you bestow on each and every one of us. Lord, we pray also for those that are less fortunate and homeless. Father, we pray for a cure for this terrible epidemic that this country is serving and is affecting us worldwide. We ask that you bless the men and women as emergency responders, the people in all the medical field, and our men and women in the armed forces that fight for democracy and freedom abroad. Lord, we ask that you bless the decisions we make here today as we go through this fiscal court, that they may be pleasing to you and the people we serve in our community. It's in your precious name we pray and ask these things. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Y'all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the
flag,
the United States,
States of America,
to the republic,
which stands
one
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
liberty
and justice
for all.
Thank you. And
Am I cutting out real bad?
no, you sound okay, Butch.
Okay.
Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Magistrate Putman.
Here.
Magistrate Southern.
Here.
Magistrate McCollum.
Here.
Magistrate Moran.
Here.
Magistrate Berry.
Here.
Thank you. You have before you the minutes of the June 9th, 2020 Henderson County Fiscal Court meeting after a period of review. I'll entertain a motion to approve those.
I'd make a motion to approve.
I would second it.
I have a motion from Magistrate McCollum, a second from Magistrate Putman. Any other comments, questions, additions, corrections? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. We have with us today Missy Vanderpool, who's CEO of Henderson Economic Development, and her Vice President, Risley, to give us an update on their activities. And I think this is their first time to address the court since Ms. Vanderpool was named president. Is that correct, Missy?
That is correct. It's my first time presenting to you guys, so I'm excited to be here.
Glad you're here. Speak up a little bit and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, and I'm going to try and share my screen so that we can have a slideshow. Can y'all hear me okay?
I need to turn the volume
Yes.
loud if you can.
Okay. We may need to move our computer a little bit closer to us. And hopefully that'll help. So just a little bit about us. I started in March of this year as the Executive Director of Henderson Economic Development, and I know you guys have all met Whitney before. Whitney is our Director of Existing Industry and Workforce Development, and Stephanie is she's over here to the side where you can't see her, but Stephanie is our bookkeeper, administrative assistant, office manager, and guru of all things. So we have a great team here, and I'm really honored to be a part of the team. So if you would have asked me 3 months ago, what is economic development, I would have told you something totally different. And every day I'm learning more about what economic development is. So we'll go over that briefly. And then this is just an overview of what we'll talk about today. Jobs and investment, the economic impact, statistics, looking forward, and then we'll open it up to you guys for questions. But Judge, you're not allowed to ask any questions. You asked me all the hard questions during the interview process. That was supposed to be funny. So what is economic development? A big portion of what we do is business retention and expansion, and that is Whitney's area of expertise, and we are really fortunate to have Whitney. She does a great job in this area, and that we're really focusing on that right now. And she has a great relationship with our existing industries, and that helps to have those relationships for the whole community. And then, of course, the piece that a lot of people think of is the business attraction piece. That's where we're trying to get new industries here into our community, and then also workforce development. Those are our three strategic priorities. There's a lot of things that fall under each one of those. A lot of being the connector between our existing industries and resources. So there's a lot in between those three categories, but those are our three main strategic focuses. So jobs and investment. And I'm going to show you from 2016 to 2020, and we operate on a fiscal year just like you guys do. So you can see on here the jobs that have been created and the investment over the past 4 years. And you'll see in 2019, this is fiscal year just ending right now. So not even completely finished with this fiscal year. You can see that we've added some jobs. And the investment piece looks really good for the past year. So some of those jobs that have been created or added were Ellis Park, Easy Access, the home place of Henderson, and we'll talk a little bit about the home place of Henderson. They're operating in our heat lab, and we'll talk about our heat lab in a little bit in the future. And then of course, as the judge I know has probably talked about the solar at 4-star, and that's a total of about 269 jobs of everything that we've added over the last year, or that's been added over the last year. So what does that mean? What type of impact is that for us with that many jobs added? This is the economic impact of those jobs in compensation, and then indirect and induced, and then your total number of the impact from those jobs that are created. This is a demographic profile of Henderson, and we just wanted to compare our surrounding communities, because I know a lot of times we get compared to Owensboro, Davis County, Hopkins County. So you can see here the population. Of course, Davis County's population is quite a bit more significant than ours. But our labor force participation, we're right in track with them. The poverty levels, the median household income, and the per capita income, we're right in target, right close to the same as those other communities. But if you go into the cost of living, our annual average salary is actually just a little bit higher than the other communities, a little bit below the state and national average. But our cost of living index is 92%, and our purchasing power is listed there. So you can see how we compare with those other surrounding communities. And this was pretty interesting. This is the 1% change in gross domestic product from Henderson. And we follow, the latest data we have was from 2018, so we don't have 2019's data yet. But Henderson expanded 6.3%, which followed a growth in 2017 of 2.9%. So that's great indication for where we are in Henderson. And manufacturing was the largest portion. We know that manufacturing is very important to our community, and you can see that that was the largest portion of our gross domestic product in 2018. It contributed to $849 million. So here's a snapshot of our top 3 industries for Henderson County. Of course, as I just said, manufacturing, it employs about 5,300 people. And you can see on there the average salaries for those workers. And let me move my screen a little bit so I can see the, our employment we gained in manufacturing, healthcare and social assistance is number 2. And we did gain a little bit there as well. Our retail trade, these do report to the first quarter of 2020. So you will see the decline there in retail trade, and that's a direct result, we feel like, of COVID-19, because it is reporting through the end of the first quarter, that's where we were beginning to see the shutdowns. So overall, of all of our industries, the top 3, we did have a minor growth as far as percentage of employment. And then overall, there was a small decrease, but again, we feel like that's a direct result of COVID-19. And then our unemployment rate, as you all are well aware of, we were at historic lows, and then COVID-19. And you can see right here where it spikes at the end is because that's the end of the first quarter of 2020. So that's a direct result again of the COVID-19. We were at about 8%, and Davis County was at 8% as well, and then Hopkins County was 10.5% unemployment. Our wage trends, you can see the increase there as well. We do have the highest wage, and we compared these to, again, Davis County and Hopkins County, just as a comparison to our surrounding communities. And again, we were at 42,743, Davis County 42,323, and Hopkins County 42,034. So those wages are increasing pretty close to the same. And then our existing industries, Whitney will go over. This is again her area of expertise, and those are just a snapshot of some of our existing industries that we have. And Whitney will go over all the programs we have with our existing industries.
Hello. As Missy mentioned, the business retention and expansion aspect of our strategic plan is a significant part of my position with existing industries. And when we talk about existing industries, we're referring to manufacturing and logistics and distribution companies. And so that's why the logos that you see here on this page are a lot of our manufacturers here in Henderson County. So as Missy mentioned when she first came on board, that was just right before COVID hit. And as I was trying to get her introduced to all of our manufacturers in the area, we had to quickly switch gears to help be the connectors and provide resources of COVID resources, how the manufacturers can stay open as essential business and still continue to keep their employees' health and safety at the forefront. And then it switched gears to who all could make some of the required PPE. And so we did have several industries in our area come to the table when we had requests from the state offer up that they could either get in some of the supplies or they could kind of retool and make whatever PPE that the state was requesting. Then it kind of switched gears even more to, okay, how are we going to reopen and meet the requirements set by the state, even though they have been operating full time, and just continue to have the safety in place. The biggest concern that we've heard from the industries is just to make sure that their employees feel safe and secure to come to work. I'm sure you all are curious on how COVID may have been affecting our existing industries, and we are fortunate to have a diverse sector of existing industries. And so while the automotive industry took a big hit during COVID, we did have a couple layoffs, or a couple industries that had to lay off during that time, but we have also had some industries that have seen a huge spike because of this. So it's always good to have a diverse group of sectors, and that kind of just continues to help with the flow here in Henderson County. What you also see up on this page is really our value add for the existing industries. We have an industry leaders group that all of the participating plant managers or president level of the companies come together and do a best practice sharing, or if there's a hot topic, if it is health insurance or utility issues, they come together and they really have voice that they feel like these programs have helped with their best practice sharing. We also have a group called the Safety Summit, which is our environmental health and safety professionals that have come together, and this group have been meeting monthly, and they really have done a great job of bouncing ideas off of each other to make sure everyone continues to grow among the community and not just one specific industry. And our next group is the Workforce Coalition, and what we have been focusing on kind of post reopen of COVID is how we can create the awareness and education to high schooler or recent high school graduates and college graduates of the jobs and opportunities that are available here in Henderson. And not only the jobs that are available, but what is the career path or what they should be focusing class-wise or certifications to be able to get into those positions. And so all the industries will be collaborating on that, and hopefully we can share some of those once all the data has been collected and put together with a nice pretty bow on it.
And so as we're planning for our future, what are we doing, to do that? Currently, this past year, we've had 28 projects. Well, actually, we had 30 projects. We had 2 recent ones that weren't added in there. So we have had 30 projects. Of those 30, we've had 8 wins. And 6 of those wins were with our existing industries. And that's why it's so important to remember our existing industries that we have here. Some of the new is obviously from what we were talking about earlier, the home place with Jessica and Patrick Bevan, who have an office up at our heat lab. And we still are receiving RFIs, which are requests for information from the state and from different site selectors. Believe it or not, even during COVID, receiving those for people looking to expand or start here in Henderson. So that's exciting and promising. And one of the things that we have focused on in the past is site selectors, marketing to those site selectors about the properties that we have here. And that's changed a little bit. We're looking into a virtual site selector program because we feel like because of COVID, there will be some virtual site selectors. But we also think that even in the future, these industries are going to realize that they can see more sites virtually at a lesser cost than traveling to these sites. So we are in the beginning phases of working with a virtual site selector and in a program that will analyze our sites that we have and give us some feedback about our presentation and how we can appeal to these industries even better. So that's something that we're looking at post-COVID that we think is going to change the landscape of the way they look at sites in the future. And then PDI, Whitney will give you guys an update on our PDI because I know she has talked to you guys about that before.
Yes, so we really appreciate the Henderson County Fiscal Court on their contribution and approval process. I know that we've had to come to you all on several different occasions for approval on agreements and just overall process and project for the product development initiative. And that was approved at the state level through the KEDFA board on May 28th. And so we have final approval on that. So it's a great collaboration between Henderson County and the city of Henderson to be able to extend the gas line to the 425 bypass property to continue to get that site ready and be ready for industry to come with the shortest time frame as possible.
And then the heat lab, I've mentioned that a couple of times. Our heat lab operates up in the Peabody building as a co-workspace, an entrepreneurship co-workspace. And that's going to change a little bit the way it's looked previously. Starting July of 2020, there's the requirements for the grant changed, and that grant process will end on June 30th. And so July 20th, we'll be starting, that will be looking a little bit different, but it will still be there. It will still operate. We'll still have the co-workspace. Again, Jessica and Patrick with Home Place will still be there. We're excited that we'll be hosting a student from the Governor's School of Entrepreneurs She's a senior over in Davis County, but they didn't have a space for her, so they reached out to us, and we're excited about hosting her and showing her all the great things about Henderson. And then we're doing a regional Innovate and Caffeinate, just working with our regional partners in Madisonville, Hopkinsville, Paducah, because we do feel like post-COVID, there will be a lot of entrepreneurs. We've seen some people reach out to us early on that had some time, they were laid off and spent that time kind of with their business plan of what their dream was for their own business, and working on that. So we're excited about the future of the Heat Lab. Those that serve on the Heat Labs Advisory Board will continue to serve as a committee of Henderson Economic Development. So that kind of concludes our presentation. I really want to say thank you so much for your continued support of Henderson Economic Development, and we really appreciate you and appreciate you having us. And at this time, does anybody have any questions for us?
Questions of Missy or Whitney? I'd like to ask, and you probably answered this in indirect way, but what's your sense of our local industrial leadership's view of what's going to be happening in the next 12 months? Are they optimistic about a hard rebound? Are they worried about a soft rebound? What are you hearing from them?
Surprisingly, we've had several visits with our industrial leaders, and they've all been very optimistic. Of course, some of them in the automotive industry are more cautiously optimistic, but overall, we've been very pleasantly surprised that everyone is very optimistic. And like Whitney mentioned, several have seen an uptake in their business, some of them directly related to the housing industry, which the housing market is crazy right now. So we're optimistic that they're optimistic.
I know that you hear a lot about, supply chain disruption. And so that has been one of the questions that we make sure that we ask them. And a few of them have mentioned that there would be supply chain issues, or they have noticed a little bit of a lag time, but they have all seemed to think that it's going to come back, or they may not even have any issues, or it's already back up on the swing of getting back to normal. So it's been a really positive outlook so far that we've heard.
As a follow-up to that, workforce was a challenge even before COVID hit here in Henderson County. And do you hear employers kind of offering concerns about the fact that so many people seem to be content on stimulus checks and may not be heading back to work anytime soon, especially if the next round of stimulus comes through, at least what we're hearing about? Is there any concern with employers about that dynamic?
Yeah, there was some pretty big concerns whenever everything was first shut down towards the end of March, beginning of April. But I think so far the industries have said, if they're able to call back people from a layoff, they are doing all that they can to get people back to come back. And so far, and we've heard from one industry specifically that said their employees were ready to come back. They didn't want to sit at the house anymore, or maybe some of the other individuals in their household were working from home too, so they were ready to get back to work.
And I also know the question of childcare, when childcare centers will open completely is another question that may be interfering with people getting back to work. Is that what you're hearing too?
Yeah, we've asked that question as well, and they're just all trying to be as flexible as they can. And there was one industry that did speak about trying to accommodate for childcare in some way. I mean, it was very new to them and trying to figure out how they can help accommodate that. We know, I know firsthand, Whitney knows, I'm struggling right now with childcare, so that will be an issue.
Any other questions of Ms. C or Whitney?
I'd like to make a comment. I appreciate what all you're doing. I know with the 425 project and hopefully the 69 bridge and the city's new recreational area. Every time we've got something going on, I hope that you all will consider help pushing rails and trails, bicycle trails. Europe, about 30% of their population gets to work on bicycles. That may sound silly, but it's really make a nice way of life for Henderson. I'd like to see more bicycle trails. We've messed up on that in the past, and where the 425 is, that's one of the two really good places you could get under 425. If we could get one put along the 69 project, that would get us right out to the recreational areas out there, the Green River area, recreational areas. It just seems like we need to not forget about those things when we're talking about them. So just my thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you, Charles. And that's a really good, important thing that you speak of. Quality of life is so important. Whenever, so many people are trying to do the same things to attract these industries. But that's something that we can offer that's special here is the quality of life. So that's a very good point.
Well, you've got the railroad, the old railroad track there at 425. There's a bridge there that gets you out. Also, you could come under the bridge, take you up to Shooty Lane. I really think, that, as county attorney, we had a lot of people that worked out at Tyson that would get a DUI or something, lose their driver's license. And it may sound silly, but I think there's people that would travel, 12, 14 miles to get to work, even on a bicycle. So that it would be great to have something all the way down there. And, you got Columbia, you got so many things out in that side of town that I think it would lend itself to that and the Tysons and so forth. Just my comments.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Whitney or Missy? I would like to thank you for coming today. We hope to see you regularly. Anything we can do to help during this recovery, get us back on track, get those unemployment numbers back down where they were pre-COVID, we'll be happy to try to do. And after this meeting's over, I'd like you to call me because I have another economic development prospect that has contacted me, and we've had a conversation now for a month, and it's moving along. So call me and we can talk.
We will do it. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, the next three items in your packet are resolutions around services contracts. First with GRAD for administration of, I believe, the Warm Center CDBG grants every year, as well as contracts for the detention centers, medical services, and an architectural project that Jailer Brady is undertaking. So first we'll start with GRAD. Does anybody have any questions about that contract? We're going to read a resolution accepting it, but again, it's a formal contract with GRAD to help administer the CDBG funding for the Warm Center. And did I characterize that correctly, Mr. Wiesen?
Yes, this is actually an oversight. This was for last year's grant. We never got a PSC for that. So this is GRAD playing catch up, just getting it to be formalized.
Judge, I've reviewed the agreement and it's approved as to form and legality.
Any questions? That I'll have the clerk read the resolution.
Whereas the Community Development Block Grant Recovery Program requires that a community receiving CDBG-R funds signs a contract for professional services, and whereas the contract for professional services must outline the process by which a CDBG project is administered, and whereas the Commonwealth of Kentucky Department for Local Government has awarded a Community Development Block Grant to the Henderson County Fiscal Court, and whereas the Green River Area Development District has chosen to administer the Henderson County Fiscal Court CDBG project, now therefore be it resolved by the Henderson County Fiscal Court that the attached contract for professional services between the Henderson County Fiscal Court and the Green River Area Development District is hereby adopted, and Henderson County Judge Executive is hereby authorized to execute the same on behalf of the county.
Motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Cullum, second by Magistrate Southard. Any other questions about that? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. With that, I'll turn it over to Jailer Brady for any comments you'd like to make about the medical contract, excuse me, and the architectural project.
Good morning.
Morning.
Been working with the county attorney's office. Bobby Norris have been a lot of help, and I really appreciate it. And you should have copies of both contracts. We're looking to get a design to expand our medical department from the architect. And get some pricing before we commit to doing anything.
Maybe what about the boiler?
The boiler, Keiko drew up an RFP for that, and it's being reviewed right now. We've got some quotes, but the architect said that if we're looking at expanding the medical department, because the boiler's back up to the medical department, that would be the best time to go ahead and replace those.
Do we need to take any action on the boiler to tie it all together, or what do we need to do?
It would be part of the drawings that they're coming up with right now.
So that's part of this what we're.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it's going to be
Go ahead, Magistrate. You say that again, Tim?
it's going to be this one project's going to take care of both problems.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any comments from the jail committee, Magistrate Moran or Magistrate McCollum, about the medical services contract? I know that was a large project, getting that put to bed, hopefully, with this vote. Any other thing you'd like to add?
No, I think it's good.
It is good. I agree.
Mr. Gold is working.
If I can just chime in for a minute too, Judge.
Sure.
If I can chime in on, I had a chance to look at it too, and it looked like a good comprehensive plan that was going to cover probably more than the needs that we had down there from what I read. So looked like a good deal altogether, price-wise and all. Am I right on that, Amy?
You're correct.
Mr. Gold, anything you'd like to add?
Just that this was evaluated by the jailer after receiving multiple proposals, and she feels that this provider is the one that can help best meet her constitutional requirement to provide medical services to inmates, and she believes that this will enhance her ability to do that. And I've reviewed the agreement and worked with the jailer on that, and it's approved as to form and legality.
One question, Amy. I know we were budgeting as you were negotiating the proposals. You're pretty confident that the budget we have approved for next fiscal year will be able to constrain this project. Do you have enough money in the budget now to pay the contract as it stands?
We're going to have to amend that, but we're also going to have to amend. Last week, I just received the numbers from the state for our bed allotment and medical. Actually, they're usually sent like well before April, and because everything's been shut down, the state just sent our numbers, and they are different than the numbers from last year. So
we'll work in July to amend the budget and bring it in line with what you're expecting.
sir.
Any other questions of Jailer Brady? With that, I'll have the clerk read the first resolution on the medical contract.
Resolution authorizing Henderson County Jailer to execute agreement with West Kentucky Correctional Healthcare 2 LLC for jail healthcare services. Whereas the Henderson County Jailer has reviewed proposals for provision of professional healthcare services at the Henderson County Detention Center, and whereas after research and meeting with various providers, the jailer has identified and hereby recommends the services of West Kentucky Correctional Healthcare 2 LLC for the provision of inmate healthcare services at the detention center. And whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court approves the recommendation of the Henderson County Jailer that the attached agreement be approved. Now therefore be resolved that the Henderson County Fiscal Court hereby authorizes Jailer Amy Brady to bind the county to the terms of the attached agreement with West Kentucky Correctional Healthcare II LLC for inmate healthcare services and directs her to execute said agreement on behalf of the county, along with any and all other necessary and appropriate documents required to effectuate the intent thereof.
Entertain
I
a mo-
move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion by Magistrate Moran, a second by Magistrate Barry. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes. Now I'll have the clerk read the resolution on the contract with the architect.
Resolution authorizing Henderson County Judge Executive to execute professional architectural services agreement with Fosse and Associates Architects Incorporated for detention center projects. Whereas the Henderson Jailer is desirous of making certain fiscal alterations to the detention center, including but not limited to a new inmate medical center. And whereas architects from Fosse and Associates Architects Incorporated are very familiar with the design and structural components of the detention center based on their prior experience in the initial design and various remodel projects at the facility. And whereas the Henderson County Fiscal Court deems it in the best interest of the Henderson County to commission the architectural work proposed by the jailer, now therefore be resolved that the Henderson County Fiscal Court authorizes and directs County Judge Executive Brad Schneider to execute the attached document entitled Standard Abbreviated Form of Agreement between Owner and Architect to execute any and all other necessary and appropriate documents required to effectuate the intent thereof.
Steve, what did you think of the contract? Is it okay?
Yes, that standard form architectural association contract is one that we end up having to mark a lot out and add sections to, but we've done that enough times that I pretty much have a list going of amendments and changes that I want to that contract. So whenever we get one of those, I'm able to send it back. And we've worked with Fosse in the past, and they know what I'm going to require on that. And they're usually okay with it. So, and they were this time as well. So it's approved as to form and legality.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Magistrate Cohen, and a second from Magistrate Southard. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Gold. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next, for an update on how the new coroner's van purchase and outfitting is going, we have Coroner Bruce Farmer with us to give us the latest. Bruce?
Judge, members of the court, good talking with y'all today. The van has been purchased. It is in our hands. We have started doing the work on converting it over. We've done it all with money that was shifted, and Brenda has later from my budget. So we've not asked for anything more than what we already have. Now, to finish up the van, I've talked with people at Steins Design and with Ohio Valley two-way radio. Put the radio in the unit, have to get it some safety markings on the truck, and then we want to see about a cabinet inside. That's going to run $3,000 to $4,000, and that'll have the van complete. We've already got the mortuary cot in. We've got the tray for the mortuary cot, and all steps into the unit already done. Like I said, we were able to capture that with money in this year's current budget. So the only thing more is, like I said, whenever the court says it's okay, it's going to be, $3,000 to $4,000 before we pin down exactly to finish up the unit. We are trying to find part-time people to help man it. We, due to the situation going on with what we can offer, we haven't been able to come up yet with anybody, but we are still working on that. And hopefully we'll come up with something. If not, we'll just keep working like we have been. I'd like to start using this July 1st, and we're getting that close to being able to do it, and hopefully everybody will be okay. Because like I said, my staff average 67 years of age, so we're kind of going from there. Other than that, that's where we stand at the moment.
Any other questions, Farmer?
Hey, Bruce, what was the total cost of that then with the equipment and the van? I don't remember.
Brenda, you got the totals up to date, right? The van itself was $26,222, I believe, wasn't it, Brenda?
Yes, and then the additional that are in claims today is an additional about 7,000.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for the update, Bruce.
We did buy the brand new one, right?
Yes. It was a 2020 Ford Transit 150. And like I said, we're waiting on the paperwork for the title right now. It's already been paid for. Like I said, what equipment we got now in it, we bought out of our budget. So next thing is what we're going to need to finish up.
Bruce, have you already notified Keiko for the insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Brenda did that right off the bat. We have the insurance and cards already in the truck.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. Next, animal control reports, and Debbie is with. I know the news of an arrest in the case of the dog who was killed and found in Henderson County Fairgrounds bathrooms doesn't necessarily fall under your purview now, but I know pet owners around the county were very concerned about that. So I'm sure you've kept track, but on that cheery note.
Absolutely. He's actually going in for an arraignment right now. My phone keeps going off, so I apologize. I've kind of got two things going at the same time. I'm not sure what's happened. I have animal control on the other computer zooming on that court. I have to, give a shout out to Artie because she really stayed on top of this and tried to help the detectives, and they were amazing finding out who was responsible.
Anything else to add about your financials?
Not at this time. You will have a quarterly and end of fiscal year report coming next month. There has been, I believe I've emailed a few of you already, change in animal control staff. We are now short 2 animal control officers. I've just recently hired one last week, still interviewing for the second one. It just seems to be the way it works in the field. But we get somebody that, is really good, and unfortunately, it just doesn't seem to last long enough. We got a lot of good prospects filling out resumes and applications, so I'm confident that we will be back to full staff within another week or two. We are full of cats, by the way. We are now at complete max capacity with cats. As you know, it's kitten season. They are everywhere. We're still working for a trap neuter release grant to try to help the community. The community's been great, calling and hanging on to them till I can open up a cage. We've been adopting them out like crazy for $25. And as soon as I open a cage, I get 10 more cats in. There's just no way around it right now until we can get a hold of this population and hopefully get a trap neuter release grant to get something started on this. I think that's all I have right now, unless you guys have any questions for me.
Any questions? Hearing none.
I will keep you posted.
Thank you, Debbie, and please do keep us posted on the hiring of animal control officer. It's always, obviously, that's our primary assignment in our partnership with the Humane Society is providing animal control. So thanks for trying to stay on top of that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is an update from the detention center. Amy, anything else you wanted to add other than what we've already covered?
I just received information from Dr. Wilson with the new medical group, and they are fully staffed and ready to roll July 1st. And they've actually hired some of the paramedics from the ambulance service also. And they'll be doing intake screening, so we're looking forward to it.
You got a little rent.
Pardon?
I think Master McCollum didn't mean to make a
Oh, okay. And then gardens in full swing. However, you know, the state's released a lot of inmates and they haven't started arresting people and bringing them back in, sentencing people to split sentences and things like that. So the jails aren't open back up yet. We have a lot of garden out here, but not many inmates to work in the 22 acres that are. That's a lot of weeding, and the staff is, you know, they're working, trying to keep up with things. And we've sent plans for reopening. Each jail has sent an individual plan in. It had to go through the steps to be approved by the local health department, Department of Corrections, Department of Public Health, and then signed off by the governor. And ours is up there waiting to be signed off on. There hasn't been a single one we found out this morning signed off on yet. So,
Amy, I want to congratulate you. Just in the last month, the jail has exceeded its revenue budget for the year, which is terrific. Your ability to do that consistently keeps the jail's expenses from being paid or subsidized out of the general fund, which not only aids the general fund and the rest of our departments, but the local taxpayers as well. And many people don't realize that we have one of the few jails that pays its way. And many counties are saddled with huge costs for having county jails, and we do not. My fear is, and I know you begin to think about this, is the AOC and the court's reaction to COVID and letting a lot of prisoners out may change their future considerations about incarcerations and prosecutions, or at least penalties. Do you feel any of this is going to impact your revenues in the coming year?
it has. It's already impacted our revenue, but we are working to offset that. Actually, we have a building that's totally shut down, and we moved the inmates from that building to the main jail to save on staffing and overtime hours, utilities, things like that. If it takes less staff if we have everyone in one building, and we're working together just to, take advantage of everything that we have available here and use what we have stocked up on throughout the year. And we have cut our purchasing and things like that. So we're cutting every way possible, and staff's working together to help offset the revenue cut.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not for jailing more people. I'm just for adjusting as we need to the new reality. If this continues, and I'm sure you and your colleagues in the state are thinking hard about these things.
We are. We just met about it yesterday, actually.
Well, thank
Brad,
you.
if I could make a comment on that, I think the real problem is going to be when the legislature changes these felonies down to misdemeanors, and then they're going to drop a lot of this on the. I think Steve is aware of that as well, but that's that seems to be their approach, is dump it on the counties and not pay us. They'll make it a misdemeanor.
We'll have to wait and see what happens. But in the meantime, I know our jail staff and our leader at the jail will do the best they can to adjust. And,
We're working on it. Thanks.
okay, any other questions of Jailer Brady? Thank you, Amy. Next in your package, you have the Sheriff Department report. Unless Mr. Crafton has anything to add to the report, can offer any additional comments. David, anything?
I don't know.
Judge, I move we accept.
Second.
We have a motion by Magistrate Putman, a second by Magistrate Perry. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kraft. Renice Abner is neck deep in today's election, and from all the reports I've had, it's gone smoothly so far. We are expecting much higher percentage turnout than we had previously had for presidential primaries in the past, so that's good news. And Brent Jacobs from our staff was at the high school earlier today helping with technical setup and monitoring the technical processes out there. It's going very smoothly, so that's good to hear. But Renisa is not with us, but she did turn in her county clerk's report. Wiesen wants to characterize that at all for us, please. And you have it in your packet as well.
I'd make a motion to accept it.
I second it.
Motion from Magistrate Cohen, a second from Magistrate Putman. I will note that her most recent fees that she turned in put her over her revenue budget for the year, which is terrific. And we're going to talk about the budget here in a second. But any other questions about that? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Mr. Gold, your report.
Yes, Judge, I've got several checks today that I provided to Mr. Wiesen. The first is reimbursement for salaries, FICA, and retirement in the amount of $9,895.18. Dental and life insurance for $16.58. Health insurance, $962.65. For today's total, it's $10,874.41. And fiscal year total to date, $169,626.25.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Master Putman, a second by Master Perry to accept the county attorney's report. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Treasurer Brenda Rogers with us. Some fund transfers, some claims, and we'll chat a little bit about the budget as we near year end.
The transfers, which you should have received an additional page yesterday afternoon, these transfers are presented as presented, reallocating appropriations within the existing budget. Pretty much this is the cleanup for the final fiscal year end as we know it at this time. I am also asking at the end of page 2 for approval for any adjustments that may be necessary to complete the fiscal year that I am unaware of at this time.
Any questions?
Judge, I would make a motion that we accept these transfers, and with that disclaimer that Brenda just made to pay or move or transfer anything she needs to do to make it all balance. Did I get it right, Brenda?
Yes, sir.
I was going to suggest any comments from the Finance Committee, which met yesterday about transfers for any of these year ends.
I got ahead of you, Judge. I'm sorry. No, I think we're going to get it.
Charlie, you're on. Sorry. Charlie, you're on.
Go ahead.
Charlie's making a comment and he's on mute.
I'm sorry. it's hard to stay on task here. You said, I think, about maybe $7,000 that you don't really know what's going to happen.
Referring to what?
To make things balanced that she doesn't know about yet. You don't have the numbers on.
There may be a couple loose ends in between today and June 30th.
Right.
You might have to pay. We don't know what that is, but we don't think there are very many out there.
Will $10,000 cover that?
I'm not certain.
I'm not certain.
Do you have 100,000? What do we need to do?
These are things that may pop up in the next week that we're not certain about. If you want to,
I understand. We got to have some limitations on it, though.
well, actually, what we need to do is if there's a problem, we need to have a special called meeting and pay them. Because either way, we have to finish the year with a balanced budget, regardless of what the final amount is. If you want to have a special called meeting before June 30 to go over this again, in case Brenda reports anything unusual, I'd be happy to.
No, what I'm trying to do is come up with a number that we can approve right now, so we don't have to have a special call meeting if we can. If we're like, say, 10, we give her approval right now for up to 10,000 or 20,000 or some number, and then if it's within that, we don't have to have a special call meeting.
Make a motion, Mr. McCollum.
Well, Butch has already made a motion. I would ask that we amend it to
yeah.
to make up to $20,000.
I second the amended motion and for Charlie. Yeah.
Well, let's do this correctly here. Do you want to amend your motion, Magistrate Putman?
I do.
Can you restate it, please?
I amend, well, we do the transfers, then we allow Brenda to spend up to $20,000 to balance the budgets to any unknown charges that may come in. Does that sound right?
Yep.
I second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any other questions about the transfers or the granting of Treasurer permission to square up the accounts before the end of the month at a cap of $20,000? I think that was the number, correct, Mr. Putman?
Yes.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Claims?
You should have your bank balances after paying claims today. I will say that your day-to-day appropriation lines for the general, road, and jail have all finished below 100%. This is appropriations. The general fund at approximately 75%, the road fund 82%, and the jail fund at 89%. I have several additional claims for today. In the general fund, to CAECO All Lines Fund Insurance in the amount of $753. This is the annual premium for liability insurance for the drone, which was purchased recently by the Sheriff's Office. This is to come from the Sheriff's Office Supplies Appropriation line. Next, to HARP Enterprises Incorporated in the amount of $24,542.85. This is to pay the primary expenses for today's election and is to come from the clerk's election materials and supplies appropriation line. Next, to Staples in the amount of $1,567.23. This is for miscellaneous supplies for the clerk's office and is to come from the clerk's office supplies appropriation line. To Crescent Memorial in the amount of $3,137. Meyer Truck Equipment in the amount of $3,825. And Clark Grave Vault Company in the amount of $779.10. These three invoices are to pay for supplies for the coroner's vehicle, which was recently purchased and is to come from the coroner's supplies and expense appropriation line. Still with the general fund, to Dale in the amount of $1,289.75. This is a laptop purchase for a Sheriff's Department cruiser and is to come from the Sheriff's Office Supplies Appropriation line. To CAECO All Lines Fund Insurance in the amount of $23,176. This is for the earthquake insurance renewal and is to come from Insurance Courthouse Appropriation line. Still in the general fund, to the employee HRA health reimbursement account in the amount of $8,716.08. And this is to transfer the administration fees for the employee assistance program and is to come from the employee assistance appropriation line. To the road fund, to Tom DeMar and Sons in the amount of $900. This is for repairs of fairground emergency lighting and is to come from the Parks Program Supplies Appropriation line. From the jail fund, to E&T Tree Service in the amount of $1,700. This is for an additional tree removal and is to come from equipment repairs and maintenance appropriation line. To the LGEA fund, to the City of Henderson in the amount of $23,547.45. This is 2 invoices for the county's portion of flood mitigation of Canoe Creek and is to come from the Canoe Creek appropriation line. The last thing I have is from the general fund is approval to pay approximately $750 to CAECO All Lines Fund Insurance, and this is for the annual premium of the drone liability insurance for the EMA and is to come from EMA Supplies appropriation line. This invoice should be on its way here within a week. I don't have the actual invoice, but it should be approximately $753. And that is all the additional claims.
Make a motion, we approve the claims.
I second it.
We have a motion by Master McCollum, second by Master Putman to approve claims. Questions? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. The Finance Committee did meet yesterday and we went over basically what's coming up on year end with the county's budget for 19 and 20. And I'm happy to report that our revenue estimates have all been exceeded. As Brenda mentioned, our cost estimates have come in well under budget. So once again, we have we're going to finish the year in the black. We're going to be able to put more money in to our reserve. We're going to be able to handle any emergencies or reduce tax revenues next year due to COVID might occur. I'm very proud of all the department heads for towing the line and working to make sure that their expenses met their projections or were less than their projections. I think we budgeted smartly in revenues, making sure we didn't overextend ourselves, and that has proven to be the case. And then I also want to compliment Treasurer Ryder for all her work, as she keeps me up to date, and Lord knows I wear her out on the latest numbers, making sure that I know what's going on almost week to week with our budget, and I appreciate her patience. I'll note that our decision to take the occupational and net profit tax collections in-house have worked as we had hoped. Brent Hebner, our occupational tax collector, has done a tremendous job not only streamlining the process, but also making sure that all businesses in Henderson County are treated fairly in adhering to our occupational tax and net profits tax laws, especially companies that are coming into Henderson County to do business and need to pay, get a business license and pay the tax like locally established businesses do. That fairness was one of the major reasons we wanted to make even more robust our enforcement of the occupational tax. Not that we enjoy collecting taxes, but the law is the law, and we want to make sure that everybody is treated fairly under those laws. Brent Hebner has helped make that happen, and a byproduct of that is we have collected almost $390,000 more in occupational and net profits tax revenues this year over last year. And that is a direct reflection of Brent's work, both here and with the city officials who work with businesses that do business in both the city and the county, clarifying where those revenues should go. So a huge compliment to Mr. Hepner and now his assistant, Shirley Pruitt, who is learning quickly to help back him up and back up parts of our finance operations every day. So it's been a good year. I know in our community, it's been a tough last 4 months. Part of the benefit to our community of budgeting well is not having to raise taxes in order to meet our obligations. And I'm happy to say that we are in a position to not have to raise taxes anytime soon, as long as we make sure we watch our pennies and budget correctly. So thank you to the Finance Committee for all their work. And gives me confidence knowing that we're on the right track again. We're staying on the right track. And with that, I'll turn it over to either member of the Finance Committee want to make any comments, or Treasurer Rodney.
Well, Judge, I think you framed it quite well. Again, my hat's off to all those elected officials and department heads that stayed on task to come in below or on budget. It was a job well done. Again, next year we're going into something that's relatively unknown. So I think we'll be equipped to handle whatever comes up, but just a job well done to everyone. Thank you.
And I agree with Butch. It was good, and you did frame it very well, Brad.
Thank you. Any other questions about budget? In the next week or two, as we wrap it up, I'll have Treasurer Ryder distribute the year-end report. That'll probably happen in July, I'm sorry. The year-end report she files with the Department of Local Government that summarizes the most recent fiscal year. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how we ended the years. Thank you very much. Any other questions of Treasurer Ryder on the finances? Thank you. Before we go into the county, I want to reflect back on the conversation we had 2 weeks ago about responding to Planning Commission recommendations to Fiscal Court. Here's how I'd like to handle that. We will absolutely distribute all recommendations that come to Fiscal Court from Planning Commission all over you as soon as we get them. We'll get them in email form, so you'll be able to review them. And at the next Fiscal Court meeting, I'll simply ask if there's any reason anybody has to actually cast a vote on those. And if somebody has a specific reason why, we certainly will. If we do not, I would like to not have to go ahead and vote, because we do not have to vote to approve those recommendations. And by voting, we also open ourselves up to potentially crossing a line into the need for a public hearing. And that would only slow down the process. And one of the reasons the 21-day moratorium was put in, whereas the Fiscal Court deciding not to vote still offers support for the recommendations, is to keep projects from being unnecessarily delayed by relatively meaningless votes or bureaucratic processes. And I agree with that as somebody who spent a lot of time on the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development fighting to make Henderson County much more business friendly, and to shake this image of not being business friendly. Anything that streamline processes and help get projects up and going in a reasonable amount of time, I favor. And again, I think what I'd like to do is to make sure you have all the information you need to review all the recommendations, but not take a vote unless somebody has a specific reason why we should. I'll take all the feedback I can on that plan.
Okay, I apologize, but I disagree with that. I think it's our responsibility to vote on it. We do have to be careful. You're correct. And all we have to do is say we approve, and I'd like to make a motion today that we approve the rezonings 111, 1100, and 1101, just following the recommendations of the Zoning Commission. If we do it in that form, there is no chance of anybody challenging it. what you're talking about, and I agree with you, is that if somebody makes a comment, oh, I know those people and they're really good people, or I know this or that, then it does subject somebody to filing a suit and forcing us to have a hearing or whatever. So I agree with that, but I don't see anything wrong with us. If we've looked at it, we've reviewed it, and my disappointment is we've not seen a single one of these so far since we've been in office. And I think they should have been sent to us. And I think we can approve them without causing any problems or slowing the process down. So with that in light, I would make a motion to approve 11.
Before we make a motion, let's have a little bit more discussion, please.
Okay.
The thing about what Manager McCollum is describing is that if we take anything up for a vote, as he describes, there will not be the ability to ask a single question unless we want to go into, have it trip over into public hearing territory. So if you have not reviewed the documents thoroughly and you vote without completely understanding them or being able to ask a question, then in my mind, we have also not fulfilled the public's role, expectations of us to vote in an informed manner. So just realize that what Manager McCollum is suggesting is that we vote without enabling you to ask any questions unless you're willing to delay the process and have a public hearing. Does everybody understand that?
That's not entirely true, Brad. If we don't vote on it, if we don't bring it up, and we haven't reviewed all the literature that we've been sent, then we're not doing our job there either. So in order to make sure we do look at it, it's got to be sent to us. We review it. We make a motion, just like Steve said in his letter to us, to approve the recommendations of the zoning commission. And you're correct. We don't say anything else. It's not that complicated.
Well, I just want everybody to realize what is incumbent on the court is to review the documents. To make that is what truly is incumbent upon us, not necessarily to vote, but understand and review these recommendations. And if we're voting on, if we ever found ourselves voting on recommendations we have not read, and we know we can't ask a question without, again, extending the process unnecessarily or unwittingly, then that is not serving the public well. I just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. And I'm not necessarily opposed to what Matt McCollum is suggesting, but I want everybody to understand exactly what this entails. And we are all guilty of not completely reading all the information in our packets before we come to fiscal court and voting on things. I just want to make sure you're aware.
Brad, what would be the difference if I don't read my packet and you ask, does anybody have any questions about this or have any reason to bring it up? Then I'm in the same position. I haven't done my job. So what's the difference?
Well, the difference is if you actually go ahead and vote, having not read the packet, then that is, I think, abdication of duty as well.
Either way, if you haven't read and done your work, you're not doing your job.
I agree.
But
I also want to eliminate the temptation to even ask a question, again, if your intention is not to extend this into public hearing. I want to make sure everybody understands. I'm not necessarily opposed. I just want to make sure that we don't accidentally or without foreknowledge make a process harder than it has to make mountains out of molehills. But I think Magistrate Southern had a comment.
If we're not seeing it and voting on it, it automatically goes into effect. So I think we really need to see the material.
And that's actually going to happen.
Right. That's all that I was after. I really don't know that we need to bring it up to the court because of the possibility of it going further than it needs to. But I do think we need to see the information so we can bring it up if there are any problems with what we see.
That is absolutely going to happen. And I appreciate that comment. Any other thoughts?
Well, Judge, I think I was on the court whenever we went to this, and you said it, that it was to expedite the whole process in that rezoning, and and not have to go through all the public hearings and all that. We used to get those documents. They were put in our mail, and for some reason they just kind of slipped by the wayside. We quit getting them, but we did get them at one time. We could see what all the recommendation was, what the vote was, all the you had a whole list of the conversation. I mean, who said what remarks were made. So we used to get a pretty thorough document as to every decision that was made by that. Then the rest of it, you've already spoke to that. If we had any disagreement with it, or then we could bring it up. If not, it was approved. That's kind of the way it all started out, but it kind of, I guess, slipped away at times.
It was definitely an oversight. We're fixing that, certainly.
Yeah.
Again, my question is, and Master McCollum has spelled out his reasoning, voting on every one, I don't mind doing that, but you have to understand what that entails. And my fear is that we will unnecessarily or potentially unwittingly, accidentally delay a process when, by simply not voting, when we don't have a reason to vote, we affirm the Planning Commission's recommendations without putting us in any trepidation of lengthening the process unnecessarily.
Okay, well, I'm going to make the motion that we approve the rezoning 1100 and 1101 and follow the recommendations of the zoning commission. If I can't get a second, then it'll just go. But what I'm doing is saying that I've read my documents and I've done my job. Okay, so that's all. If anybody wants to second that, that's fine. If you all don't want to second it, that's up to you guys.
I tell you what, I will entertain that motion. Does anybody have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Master McCollum, a second by Master Southard. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. So again, if you don't mind, Master McCollum, what I'd like to do is every time we have one of these, after you've been able to review it, I will ask if there's somebody who would like to vote on this. And hopefully there's I don't even think, and Mr. Gold, you might correct me if I'm wrong, if we even state a reason for bringing it up, it puts us in a bit of peril, does it not?
Well, yes and no. The concern is any new evidence. Your inquiry and your decision on it, unless you're going to have your own hearing, has to be based on the hearing that was held at the Planning Commission level. That's why those transcripts are provided and should be distributed from the fiscal court office out to the members of the fiscal court for review, because it is their duty to review that, because their decision, up or down, has to be based on the four corners of that transcript. So if there is a situation where you want to vote against a proposed zoning amendment, you would have to base it on the testimony from that hearing and why you think the Planning Commission made the wrong conclusion based just on that evidence. You can't say, well, I've later spoken to this person or that person or something like that, because that then becomes new testimony and opens the door to a whole new hearing. So yes, you've got to keep it within those four corners, and a vote in favor of adopting the Planning Commission's recommendations does not need an explanation. A vote against it, as Magistrate McCollum has previously stated, without stating a reason that is based on that transcript, opens you up to being claimed that you're being arbitrary and capricious, which can get it overturned.
Is it also accurate that any comments or questions made in the course of a vote could expose us to?
Correct, because that then becomes in the nature of testimony if it is fact or opinion, unless it is citing specific portions of the transcript.
Just to make it clear.
I know it is a weird area of the law.
Brad, it is really weird, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your concerns because I've seen what's happened in the past with community development and the court not doing what they should do and making statements in the past about, well, I know those people and they're good people, and you know those kind of statements we can't make, and I understand that. But I do appreciate your concerns to try to make sure things go speedily along because that's important. So thank you all.
And correct me, clerk, did we actually take a vote?
Yes.
We did.
Yes, we did.
It was 2 minutes ago, and my short-term memory's gone. Pages long.
I talked too long about the law. It made everybody go to sleep. I'm sorry.
Okay, and just to make sure the process that I spelled out, where I'm going to ask for the need for a vote, is that acceptable to everyone?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. Anybody else say that's okay?
Yes.
You will
Yeah,
receive.
that's fine.
Let me ask another question. Once COVID, or once we resume in-person meetings, which at this point we intend to start again in July in the fiscal courtroom, unless anybody has a severe objection. We get these documents from the Planning Commission in a paper form. Would paper copies in your box be sufficient, knowing that you're going to be coming to the courthouse? How would you like it? Or we can do either if you want.
I like the email. I like the email, Brad, because we get our, excuse me, Judge, just, you know, it's there, it's readily available. You can, you know what I mean? You get it in plenty of time. Kurt sends it out like ASAP and we get it, but hard copies fine too, but I like email.
With the caveat, some of these are very large documents. Just so,
Email's fine with me, yeah. Email.
I'm sorry, Magistrate Senator, I cut you off.
I like email too.
Email.
Email.
I'm okay with that.
We'll plan on emails. If you have another preference, just contact Mr. Weeson and he will accommodate you however you need.
If I could interject, Judge,
Sure.
I want to make these, make you all aware that since January of 2019, before these two that just came before, there was a total of 4 of these documents that came through between January 2019 and June 2020. So this isn't an ongoing thing. There have not been very many of these that have gone through in the last year and a half.
And we reviewed the others, not that the court shouldn't see every one, but we reviewed the others and they were very small rezone divisions of properties. But anyway, we will get you all the information. I did touch on the fact that we would like to resume in-person fiscal court meetings in July. Does anybody have a thought about that? Should we continue to meet by Zoom, or are you okay with a meeting in person?
I may need you to show me how to tie again.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, Tim? I missed it.
I said, I may need you to show me how to tie a tie again.
I hear you. I hear you.
You know, Judge, I don't have a problem meeting live. I guess we just need to look at whatever the numbers are. We see that we're still pretty flat, not a big increase. We're steady as she goes. It probably wouldn't hurt to meet live. I mean, I'm if you're asking to me, just speaking for myself, I'm good with it, you know, based on the way things are going right now. We don't see no big outbreaks or anything like that.
You remember the last live meeting we had, we distributed measures a little differently to keep social distance.
Correct.
So move the podium back farther from all of us to try to accommodate the CDC guidelines. That would be our goal again, to do it that way. And anybody who came to...
That's sort of say, would you limit how many came to the court?
Well, I think in the last live meeting, we didn't allow visitors, actually. We broadcasted on Facebook Live and met as a court in person. I think, considering what our typical attendance is, having people, having meetings open to the public again probably is not a big deal. We have to monitor that closely, I think.
Judge, would the mask be mandated or optional?
I think they would be an option in my view, but social distancing would be a requirement. Any other thoughts? Anybody have a clear objection?
My
Not an
wife does.
objection. Not an objection, Judge, just an observation. I think even as we go forward with live meetings, I think it's probably a good idea to continue broadcasting our meetings live over Facebook. I think that has been something that the public has liked. And even if we ever get back to something near normal, that's something that the court should consider continuing, just to help people know what's going on in their government.
I agree, Steve. It's been really good, and that's probably one of the few good things that's come out of this whole process.
I do think, if you've noticed, we have more people watching our fiscal court meetings now than ever before, because it's easy to do. And, you know, we always posted the videos of fiscal meetings on YouTube after the fact. You know, I think having a live option like this is good. I agree with Mr. Gold. And we've gotten good at it. Brent Jacobs has made it fairly seamless. So I think I agree. I think we should do that. Okay, good of the county. I'll go around the room. Mr. Barry, anything for good of the county?
Just a couple things, Judge. Thanks a lot. Thanks everybody for being here today. Thank Earl Jewell and Bill Kubiak. I had a couple of issues in the county, and they helped me resolve it fairly quickly. Also thank Jeff Stone at State Highway, an issue up on 41 North with mowing. And he assured me he would take care of that today, so I would like to thank him too. But I think other than that, everything's good in District 1.
Judge, if I can interject just for a minute for the good of the county, I have something that needs to be brought up. We have a request from Natural Resource Management Solutions for some bond release on 2 different permits, 3 increments. And I would like for the court to call a surface mine committee meeting on June 14th at 8:30 a.m., please.
July 14th?
July 14th, before fiscal court.
Who's on that committee?
It would be Magistrate Berry and Magistrate Moran.
Okay.
Well, along with the record appointees.
We will schedule.
Thank you.
And while we're at it, I know Kenny Garrett with us. Before we go on any more good of the county, Kenny, an update from EMA?
Good morning, Judge. Thanks. I really don't have anything other than just to kind of reiterate something you said earlier about, you know, we're in recovery mode now, but so, I mean, we're still monitoring the pandemic daily, and so we're in constant communications with the state and local health department and emergency management. Just want to remind everybody to you know, continue to follow the guidance regarding masks and social distancing and keeping your hands clean and things like that. So we're not out of the woods yet. It's better than what it was, but just like Master Putman said earlier, it could flare back on us anytime. So that's really all I've got to add.
Thanks. I'm cleaning my hands right now, Kenny. I appreciate you reminding me. There you go.
There you go.
And Kenny's, we are working with Kenny and Brenda Ryder's office to make sure we keep track of all of our spending, all of our extra spending related to COVID. It's a wide array of expenses we're going to be able to recover from the Department of Local Government and the allocation of funds from the federal government that came to the state. We have more than $1 million that has been allocated to Henderson County to recoup in expenses. That doesn't mean we're going to get the whole million. It means we can. It's $1.3 million, I think, Kenny. Is that right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. And is that right?
That's right. $1.3 million, $1.5 million, somewhere in that area.
We can get reimbursed for up to that amount of money, and that amount is going to cover almost, if not all, of what we've spent extra on COVID. So that's good to know. And Kenny's working with Brenda to make sure we capture all that documentation. And thanks for your help, Kenny.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, Master Southern, good of the county.
All's good in District 3.
That is the shortest good of the county for Master Southern in the history of his tenure right there. Tell he's wanting to get out and go to work. Master Putman, calling in from Iowa.
Oh, thank you, Judge. If you just noticed, we had a couple of visitors just run by here. These guys are sitting on go, waiting on me to leave to come back to Kentucky as soon as we're done here. everything's good in District 4. Just want to encourage people to be sure to go vote. You know, if you were smart, you've done it like Mel, like most of us. But get out and vote. And thank you, Judge. That's it. Everything's good in the 4th.
Thank you. Master McCollum?
Everything's good in the 5th. Thank you.
Master Moran, you're going to do it another one sentence, so you got some good stuff.
Hey, guys.
I'll follow suit. Everything's good in District 2, and I encourage people to go vote.
Got a couple items. I want to thank again, all the help we had making sure our budget came solid this year. It was really important now more than ever, and with what will happen in the next 6 months, we shall see. But I'm really proud of the way we finished up this fiscal year. I want to thank a guy named James Bryan from the State Forestry Department. He oversees the Green River State Forest here in Henderson County. We have a road, Green River Road number 1, that borders the forest. And we've had some issues with that road. And part of the issues have been with the canopy of trees that have grown up over the road in the last several years on the border of the forest. And we went and looked at it with Mr. Hubiak, and they're going to work closely with us to fix this issue and help Green River Road number 1 clean and dry and serviceable for our agriculture community. I also know that Master Southern has been in close contact with KYTC and our friend Jason Ward, and I trust Master Southern, you have ongoing talks with him to help fix the PG out there on 136. I trust that to be true, yes?
Yes.
Awesome.
Hopefully we'll be meeting with I've been in touch with Robbie Mills, and hopefully he's going to get the Corps down, and there may be funding through the Corps to help us with our riverbanks too.
136 is being encroached by the river in some cases. That is a state road, but it's taken some hard lobbying from local farmers, including Mr. Southern, to really get them to understand the depth of the problem there. Pardon the pun. Thank you. I want to call everybody's attention to the retirement of Claudia Wayne, longtime assistant in the Planning Commission office. She's going to be retiring later this summer. There's going to be a farewell cake and punch type event for her on July 31st from 1 to 4 at the Planning Commission office. I hope you can all stop by and say farewell and good job to Claudia. She truly has been a good person to work with. It's been very helpful to me in both this job and in my previous life in economic development and chamber work. So congratulations to Claudia, and I hope everybody can pop in and wish her happy retirement. And again, thanks to Renisa. The voting procedure has been very controversial. Kentucky has been the subject of a lot of comments from around the country on the decisions that were made to help keep everybody safe and in this voting environment. But I think in the end, you're going to see record turnout, record numbers of votes cast, and maybe that proof is in the pudding there on the effectiveness of this method. And again, things are going well at the high school as far as we know. So thank you to Renisa. Tough choices, made them with the best information she had and to take care of her people and the community as well. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have
Second.
a motion by Master Moran, a second by Master Putman. All those in favor can leave the Zoom. Bye-bye.